And it's Luciano Vecchio.
Uh,
Vecchio.
you actually missed. We had a brief discussion. It's Luciano Vecchio
Luciano Vecchio.
because CI in Italian is chi, but CCHI is key.
Oh, interesting.
It's Luciano Vecchio. All right. Hey guys, welcome to our show. I'm Amy.
I'm Paul.
And this is the Comics Hall. We are back with another Wednesday of semi-new comic books, but also checking out some back issues on Wednesday, May 27th.
Yes, guys, and we do, of course, we not only have an incredible show where we're going to be talking about the news, we also are going to be doing a bit of a dive into the Umbrella Academy, because there's a lot of buzz around there right now, but we're also going to be talking the first issue of Chew by Image Comics, as voted by all of you in the Let Your Geek Said Show Facebook group. But before we get to that, we've got an awesome giveaway again today. We're going to be giving away the Guru del Toro by Sjogren. Is it Sjogren? I always say it wrong, Amy.
I think it's Sjogren.
Sjogren. Okay, so by the Guru del Toro by Sjogren. You guys will have a chance to win this a little bit later on. What we're going to do is we're going to drop a secret word that will give you 1,000 free entries when you follow that Gleam link, and then we have Madison. She's all over the chats everywhere. She will drop a link later on in the show that you guys can all follow, and you'll have a chance to win that awesome piece there by Sjogren.
Yes, and that is part of the Unruly Industries line, and we picked it today because it does kind of remind me in a little bit of a way of the characters of Umbrella Academy, especially the Kraken with the name association, and Ben, the child who has all the tentacles and the otherworldly void inside of him. So we thought that was a fun little way to celebrate today. But we do have some news. There is always news, and as we approach the return of comic book normalcy, which are comic books ever really normal? But as we return to publishing and solicitations and shipping, we do have some more news. Today is the first Wednesday that Marvel has released physical books in stores. Now, again, as we like to remind you, please pay attention to your local guidelines. Ask your store if they have mail, curbside, or delivery, and please continue to keep safe and keep your local stores safe and thriving while these books continue to return. But on the flip side of that exciting coin is a bit of news that upset me today. In addition to the physical books, Marvel has designated 3 more titles to be digital only, which means that the books will come out on their online store, which is closing June 2nd, or on Comixology after that closes. They will not be released in single issue, and they will probably be released in trade paperback when those volumes are eventually published. But as the publisher is recovering from the stop of income and the distribution model currently, they are pulling back on some of their titles. Now, 2 of these books are limited series. So if you are reading Scream, Curse of Carnage, or Revenge of the Cosmic Ghost Rider, your series will finish in digital format. If you're waiting for the trade, then there's no harm, no foul. But if you are collecting the single issues, you can only get a physical copy by getting the trades, or you can get the digital exclusives. But this one scared me. Ongoing series Jane Foster Valkyrie has also been turned to digital exclusive, and Marvel has removed the solicitations for issues numbers 11 and 12 from their website. So I don't know if that means that they're canceling the series or not. I don't have any news on that, but those 3 books are now digital exclusive. They join the ranks of Ghost Spider, Avengers of the Wastelands, Hawkeye Freefall, some of the 2020 titles. So that's where you're going to want to look. And remember, Marvel's digital store does close on June 2nd. You can sync your Comixology account with your Marvel digital library, and that has nothing to do with Marvel Unlimited. That service will continue to function.
Right. And also, artist Luciano Vecchio has been sharing his dream mashups of modern age amalgam comic characters. It is amalgam. I'm always so self-conscious when I say amalgam.
Amy, it's a mouthful.
Yeah. No, it's pronounced amalgam, not a mouthful. Amy, thank you. What do I bring to the show? Amalgam was a short-lived but much-loved series of comics featuring characters who they combined aspects from from the big two and also other types like DC's greatest Bruce Wayne, Agent of Shield, Amazon Princess, Aura of Themyscira. He's done some newer ones that I think we've all seen. They're on his Twitter, and they're beautiful and they're
Mhm.
super rad. I knew that when I was going through them, I knew there was going to be some that Amy picked out, and there's definitely gonna be some that I picked out, especially one that has the name Amy in it, of course, right? So I mean, some of my favorites that I personally picked out there was I liked Smash, which is a mix up of Shazam and the Hulk. That one was really cool.
And his cousin Jenny Smash, who's Mary Marvel and She-Hulk.
That was so cool. I loved that one a lot. But I knew the one that I think we were both gonna pick was Semi God, the
Semi-God,
the
as
last son of Asgard. It's a
yes,
mix up of Superman and of course Thor. And
with
that
his
one is
arch rival is Lokier, who's a combination of Loki and Lex Luthor. Yeah, so these are unofficial, but they're so much fun. So if you want to check that out, you can go to his Twitter at Luciano Vecchio. It's not spelled quite like it sounds. It's a very Italian name, but you can find it also just by Googling Amalgam Comics. A couple of editors from Marvel have retweeted the art. It's not an endorsement. It's not an announcement that Amalgam Comics is coming back, but it is a celebration of a much loved little imprint title. Another one of the really fun ones of the classic Amalgam characters people might remember is Lobo the Duck. So it just shows you kind of how many ways that they came up with creative one-shot stories to
right.
blend these characters. I think there was also Dark Claw, who was Batman and Wolverine.
Yeah.
Um, so
Oh, that's
it's a
right.
lot
Yeah.
of fun. Another pairing that I really liked from the new set of Amalgam stories that this artist is coming up with were the Emerald Marvel, who is Captain Marvel Carol Danvers and Green Lantern, and Amy Rage, who's Nick Fury and Amanda Waller, as both the heads of a clandestine organization who have to keep the superheroes in check. So it's a lot of fun if you're just looking for something cool, and your imagination will start to go as soon as you see these characters. And I think that's a lot of fun. It's one of those things that I also like when artists take on their own initiative for like the much loved and also short-lived swimsuit specials. These are books that
Mm,
haven't come back in a while, but who knows, maybe with enough fanfare, we'll start to see more Amalgam and swimsuit specials or the summer specials really,
summer
um,
specials. Yeah.
for the characters.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, Amy Rage, also known as what Amy goes into when you release a digital only, and she has a gap in her physical books. So
I know. I have all the Valkyrie, all the variants, and then number 10 is whoo, it's out of the collection. That's gonna drive me insane. But you know what? Digital comics are still valid. I'm glad that they're able to publish. I'm glad the creative team will get to continue to write and be
yes,
paid and put out story.
which is
But
the
it
most important
hurts.
part.
I don't know what to tell my long box. I don't know what to tell it.
Nothing. It'll just be upset, and then and then your weekend is gone. So you have
Yep.
to soothe long boxes. But we do again still have some more news. Do you want to take the next one there, Amy? I think this is a big
I was
one.
gonna say that I feel
Okay.
that feels more like a Paul news story.
All right. Zack Snyder has shared a look at the DC villain Darkseid from his upcoming cut of Justice League, also known as the Snyder Cut, for HBO Max, which is going to be premiered in 2021. It can be seen on his Twitter. It's also on his Instagram, I believe, at Zack Snyder. You can find it if you Google anywhere Zack Snyder Darkseid, you can see it. So I mean, it looks really cool. It looks
It looks like Darkseid. I mean, I'm not a
yeah.
DC savant, but it looks like Darkseid.
Yeah, it's definitely a earlier version of Darkseid. It's like an apocalypse. It's like a younger Darkseid from when he was still I it almost seems when he was still like a warrior and a general on Apocalypse rather than his, with like the Omega beam, the dark side that we're used to with all the blue Apocalypse armor. Because he's got like his like shirt off and looks like he just got out of a fight. It's a whole thing. We have no idea what it is, but I'm excited as being a DC fan. So I will subscribe to HBO Max once you know once the Snyder cut is out. So that'll be fun. But yeah, go to at Zack Snyder. You can see it for yourself.
And that's Zach with a CK.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
Boom Studios has released a trailer for its upcoming series Wind by James Tinian IV and Michael Dialynas. about a young boy with magical heritage in a world called Pipe Town, which is all very kind of tech based and cold urban. And magic and fantasy are forbidden, so he has to hide his pointy ears and his magical heritage. Wind is due in stores on June 17th, so you can check out the trailer for that soon. Also, Boom Studios announced another series by Tom Taylor that's coming up called The Seven Secrets, which looks like
Oh.
I've heard it described as like kind of like a shonen type anime
Hmm.
or manga series with a little bit of superhero flair. It's about seven secrets who seem to be people. The people seem to have the secrets, and it's this clandestine organization that protects these secrets while other people are trying to figure out what these secrets kind of the universe are. And the character design is really cool. There's someone who kind of looks like a teenage goth Grim Reaper, and I'm here for it. So Boom Studios has a lot of really cool and exciting stuff coming out soon.
Yes, and I'm getting we were joking before the show, everyone, that Amy is very good at spelling, and we've learned that I am Amy, what's the exact opposite of very good at spelling? It's me. So someone said I have an amalgam of words in my vocabulary, and I've decided to learn a new word, and it's going immensely. So uh um, but yeah, so also in Netflix has revealed that a full season 2 trailer for the Umbrella Academy will be launching tomorrow. That's May 28th. And season 2 of the Umbrella Academy will begin streaming on July 31st. And that was just a crazy random happenstance, if I can steal from other mediums of pop culture, that we're doing a show on Umbrella Academy today, and the trailer comes out tomorrow. I mean, that was not planned.
That was
We
really nice of them to take a look at
Yeah,
our show last week where we said, "Hey, we're gonna probably do this," and they're like,
yeah.
"Hey, we'll make that work for you, Comics Hall."
They were gonna release it today, and then we asked them. They said, we said, "Can you please not steal our thunder and release it tomorrow in Netflix?" So,
And
begrudgingly,
in turn, we will send our audience to you.
yes, you're all very welcome, Netflix, all of you. Thank you for watching the show. Um,
Just some small ways that the Comics Hall likes to give back.
yes,
But that about does it for our news. I mean, there's all new news
yeah,
popping up all the time, but that's kind of everything big we wanted to share with you ahead of this week. But we do have the Umbrella Academy itself to talk about. Volume 1, the
mhm,
Apocalypse Suite, a very beautiful and quite groundbreaking volume. I mean, it kind
yes,
of I read the trade copy, and there's a really nice foreword by Grant Morrison, who's also a huge, 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 huge
he's
comic book writer.
up and
Who
coming, I would say. You know,
he's there with Warren Ellis and Alan Moore, and they're like, yeah, keep an eye
yeah,
on them.
yeah,
Very very nice forward about the fact that Gerard Way is a genuine comics fan. He's
hmm
not, and he says he's not a celebrity tourist in the world of comics. This is a guy who has lived and read and cherished comics, and this was his story. He wanted to add his own voice, and we know as a musician, he has his very own unique kind of sound and tempo to things. But as a comics writer, like his work, there, I don't think there was anything comparable at the time, and I think still nothing quite touches the tempo and the attitude of Umbrella Academy, and
right,
now it's a groundbreaking Netflix series, and that kind of is a testament to the fact that he wasn't just, I'm rich, I've got nothing to do on the tour bus in between My Chemical Romance shows. Uh let's write a comic. Like, this was someone who had a story they wanted to tell and knew how to do it.
yeah, and I loved in that forward, that Morrison is talking about how he made it very apparent to say we were both totally sober, walking around the city, just getting lost in this world. And he said every time that he would ask Gerard Way a question about something, he had an answer. That he had fleshed out these characters so passionately and so deeply before it had even become Umbrella Academy as it lives now. And I just love that I think, Gerard Way is probably someone, after, when he's not being an incredibly talented musician and rock star, he has this time to just like live in these worlds, as Grant Morrison put it, that he allows himself to just sort of bring these characters to life and live a day in this character. And I love that in a way that only someone like Gerard Way on his platform, being My Chemical Romance, could do so.
Mhm.
Um, and I also love that this whole little thing called Umbrella Academy that came together so beautifully. came out and was really being worked on between the release of the Black Parade, which is one of their biggest albums, and it really kind of slingshotted them into. They were already pretty famous, but the the workmanship and the amount of passion and time that you have to be able to do that, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, and there's something about the like, first of all, when you look at the art style, it's, Gabriel Ba, who is legendary, twin brother of, Fabio Moon. Fantastic artwork. The character designs are so cool. You may or may not recognize some of the silhouettes and shapes of the characters if you are familiar with the TV show, but, they did change some in some way. But the design is so sharp and fun. I believe it's Nate Klaus. Oh no, I'm sorry, Nate Stewart on colors
Mhm.
for the character designs. But it is so stylish. The world is so cohesive. I mean, my personal favorite is Space Boy up front. But you do see we have Space Boy who is leading, and then from there it's the Kraken, the Rumor, the Seance, number 5, Vanya, and then the casket represents number 6. Um,
Yes.
and to have a world where the characters are numbered, you already know how their father thinks of them.
Right.
But before we get too into the nuances of the actual story, I think building off of the Grant Morrison and how much conviction Gerard Way had in his own story, I appreciate a book that can tell you this is how things are, this is what we're doing. You're either in it or you're out.
Mhm.
Umbrella Academy very easily is a book that could very easily not work. Like, you just
Right.
go, "This is ridiculous. This is insane. I can't read this. What is happening?" But it is so charming. It is so sure of itself that you accept it and you go, "Yes, of course. Yes, of course these tiny children are fighting the Eiffel Tower as it's going insane, and the zombified corpse of the man who built the Eiffel Tower is inside of it." And you just accept it because it gets to the core of what I think a lot of superhero stories are, where it's fantastic circumstances and fantastic situations that they just ask you to accept, and if you don't accept, you're not in the story.
Right.
Um, and that's what I think is so charming to me about this book. It tells you this is the way this is, and if you don't like it, step off.
And I think something that I truly love about Umbrella Academy, specifically this book, which is I mean, there's always a nuance that's required when you do an indie book that deals with superheroes, because the superhero genre is so. I don't want to say, because the word oversaturated has such a negative connotation, but there is so many superhero stories out there with some of the most beloved characters that obviously we obsess over here at the Comics Hall. There's some right there behind Amy, some behind me here. Is the stakes of a story. And so immediately in Umbrella Academy, you're thrown into this world, and Gerard Way says the stakes are real in this story, that since it's a creator-owned series and it's brand new, you don't know that, there's this magical island that can revive these people and do these things. So if someone's gone, or if there's something that happens, or if there's no implication that they'll come back. To me, that drives the story further ahead, and it allows for me to kind of really attach to these characters, especially when you get, like I found myself really obsessed over number one's base on the moon. Like,
Mhm.
what does that look like, and what would he have been doing while he's there? I mean, we know what he's doing. He's searching for otherworldly threats, and he's was put up there by Hargreaves, or
The monocle.
the monocle as he likes to be called. Don't call him dad. He doesn't like to be called dad. um, and yeah, and it's fantastic that, like, stories like this, the reason that I love them so much is there's always a character that you can relate to, and there's
Mhm.
always someone that immediately draws you in. And once you're in their world, I read the comic like outwards. Like, I look at these other characters that way.
Well, and I think the idea of what is Space Boy doing up on his moon base also leads into my next point, where it's not a book that's like, I set out to make the next Marvel Cinematic Universe, or like, this is my superhero magnum opus. This is a delicious, dark family drama with a family that happens to be superheroes and aliens, and also a robot mother and a monkey. 'Cause sometimes families can be a robot mother and a monkey and
It
an
sure can, yeah.
absentee alien dad and his, weird sidekick. But, the family drama is so amazing, and I love the way that the first issue sets it up, that you see the children and you're like, "Okay, this is strange." There's a man who has amassed all these children and is making them into a team. But then when you get to the point at which, the like the show, the book opens on the death of the father, drawing all the family back together. The interactions that you get between the children accusing each other of things or being like, "I haven't
Right.
seen you in this long," or number 7 went rogue and wrote a book, a tell-all expose about our lives, and now we hate her. Like, the drama of the family trying to reunite, is so much bigger than the fact that they were a superhero team. It's that they
Mhm.
are siblings, but they're not. For those who don't know the full premise of Umbrella Academy, it begins with an atomic flying elbow, and in an incident, a number of women around the world who were mostly single women and otherwise not showing any signs of pregnancy suddenly give birth to, I believe, was it 47?
It's 47 children.
47
Yeah,
children, and the ones that survive, a strange man named Reginald Hargreaves hunts them down, he adopts them, he clears all history of their lives, he makes sure that nobody has any connection to, like, which mother the child came from, and he
right.
adopts them because they're extraordinary, and he's going to create a superhero team, and the world asks him why, and he says, "Because I need to save the world." And then you don't get much more explanation than that before you're just launched into the fact that there is a group of children, and one of them, number 7, has been told that she is not special and she's kept away from the fights, and number 5 goes missing, he goes time traveling. And then you get the family drama of, um, all these different children. Space Boy is the super strong one. You do see the incident in which he, has his head grafted onto a gorilla body. Number 2 is the Kraken. He can hold his breath indefinitely, and he is an expert knife thrower. Number 3, who actually has my favorite power, um, is the Rumor, who can
Yes.
influence people's minds by saying, "I heard a rumor that." And number 4 is the Seance. Klaus, he's kind of a goth. He has telekinesis. He can commune with the dead, but he's also the
Right.
very crazy. Doesn't really play by the rules of the rest of the family. Number 5 is the time traveler. Number 6, I forget, or they call number 5 the boy. I forget what they called number 6. I know his name is Ben, but he has
Um,
the tentacles and the otherworldly stuff that comes out of his chest.
oh,
And
sorry.
that's a dog. And then
That's
number
a
7 is
outburst.
Vanya, who
Yes.
later becomes a much bigger threat, to the family as the white
Yes.
violin.
Yes. And I really love also that number 4, so Klaus. I love that or Seance. I also love his kind of to me, he's got the possibility for so much more in this, and he constantly subdues himself. He's someone that I think we do see later in the comic. I think it's a fair warning. There may be some spoilers during the show,
Yes.
but the book's been out since I believe '07, '08.
Yes.
Um, so I really really love Klaus and the Seance because his powers, I mean, they're so untapped. He has so much potential, and he is someone that has struggled with alcoholism and drugs, and uh, he purposely checks himself into a mental asylum because he loves the company, as he likes to say. But yeah, he has so much potential, and I think there's so many of these characters that do, in fact, have that level of potential. Um, I love the hero, like the hero dynamic that number 1 has as well a lot, that he or they just call him Space, because he is there's a line that I think the Kraken says, number 2 says to number 1 and says, "I love that, even though he's dead, you're still always trying to impress dad." Or he calls him or Hargreaves.
Mhm.
Um, but I think really at the core of this, like, more than it being, the apocalypse and the world ending and all of these crazy master plans, it's about like the main drama is this family trying to like reconcile and try to, kind of get back. And the
Yep.
art really shows that as well. It's kind of like it's constantly looks like it's um, you know, the art is also like in a beautifully drawn, like the lines are not as harsh. I'm trying to, what's the word I'm looking for here, Amy?
I don't know because I personally think there's a lot of kind of the chiaroscuro shadows and light values. We did have a request to show some panels. We didn't have any panels digitally preloaded, but I will show you. Like this is this is them at the funeral of their father.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And then I
Art
want to
by
get one of the
Gabriel
more
Ba.
one of the
Yeah.
yeah with colors by Nate Stewart. I want to get to one of more the explosive panels.
There you
Very,
go. Yeah.
very, very bright, very kinetic. Yeah, there you can see the heavy, heavy shadows on the characters contrasted with the light values.
And for some of our eagle-eyed people out there watching, if Gabriel Ba sounds familiar, he worked on Casanova with Matt Fraction. So
Yes.
that was another book that he had done, I believe, right before Umbrella Academy. If I remember, if my brain serves me correctly, I think
Yeah,
he did Casanova before.
there's been a couple volumes of Casanova.
Yeah.
I think he also did Casanova Asadia, which
Oh,
came
okay.
after Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
But I mean, as comics are constantly coming out with new volumes,
Right.
it changes. And there are several volumes of Umbrella Academy. We did cover volume 1 for this week's show, which is the Apocalypse Suite, but I got it right from last time. Volume 2 is Dallas, which introduces the time traveling mercenaries, if you are familiar with the show and you want to find out more about them. And then volume 3 is Hotel Oblivion, which was created kind of around the time that the Netflix series first launched. So it is the newest of the books. And I
Right.
actually am not as familiar with it. But you said something really nice about the oh, so in the way that the Kraken says to Space Boy, you're always trying to impress him, and we're talking about the family drama.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the one thing that you see throughout looking at these children, and they do a lot of flashbacks to the younger days to see how these children kind of grew into who they are now. You begin to wonder, are they really a family? They're technically
Right.
not related by any blood. They're related by the strangeness of their birth circumstances.
Hmm.
But these are children who also, as the series progresses and you see more of the flashbacks of their father was horrible to them. They were
Right.
tools to him. He insisted on being called the monocle. He hated and refused to let them call him dad. He made an impersonal robot mother for them. He let
Hmm.
Mr. Pogo, the sentient chimp,
Oh,
take care of them as a fatherly figure. I love Mr. Pogo. Um, but he was so callous to these children. They were tools, they were numbers to him. And you see that he kept Vanya depowered by giving her pills that kind of stabilized her. And you really see the ways in which these children were hurt, the ways in which they try to break out against that. And so when you see Space Boy continually try to impress his father, or
right.
the others desperately trying to sever their ties with the rest of the family, um, it kind of breaks your heart. And that's why I say it's not a superhero book. It is a dark family drama
Hmm.
with a family that happens to be superheroes.
Right. Exactly.
It's so smart. It's very Black Parade of Gerard Way.
Right.
Like one of those things where the vocals, the lyrics, and then the attitude of the song, you think that they don't play together. They're like, oh, these almost seem like opposites. Oh, a funny superhero book and depressing as hell.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of humor in it too. Like I don't want to say that this is just
Yeah.
a gloom and doom book. There's a lot of humor to be found in it, but past the surface. Uh-oh, did I freeze?
Oh, you froze a little bit. Yeah.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Oh, geez, I didn't like that. Um, but beneath the surface, it's not all hokey jokey fun
Right.
superhero stuff. It's so smart. Like that's one of those things where it's like there is nothing else quite like Umbrella Academy. And
Right.
I personally don't know what books that I could say off the top of my head. Oh, if you like this, read this other thing, because Umbrella Academy is almost its own beast.
Right.
And there are similar books we could recommend, but I think ultimately like Umbrella Academy is its own experience.
And it really is. And I think what's really great about, when you look at the story, if you're new to comics, or you've been reading forever, every once in a while, it's nice to remove yourself from the characters that you're reading and realize the creators and who is writing these stories that you're reading. Uh, because when I do that and I look at Gerard Way, like he loves that like artistic dichotomy. Like the Black Parade was solely revolved around completely, if I can use a word that I'm sure is not a real word, like gothifying um Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Like he purposely took the Beatles, super happy-go-lucky segment, their bright colors, and he made them dark, and he made them something that is relatable to him and most people. And that's what the Umbrella Academy is that, at the back of every superhero's mind is their family, and we don't always get to see what the relationship with their family looks like. And a lot of times when you're in a position of power like that, and you're in a position with so much going on, especially as a superhero, it doesn't your family is usually maybe it's a little dysfunctional, like the Umbrella Academy is.
Well, your family's either dead or you can't tell them you're a superhero to protect their identity or all of the above. So yeah, it is really interesting to see a family of unconnected people. There's
Right.
also, I think the thing that cemented for me that Gerard Way knew exactly what he was doing and what he wanted from this book was at the end of every chapter. First of all, the titles of the issues are worked in brilliantly.
Yes.
In bold typeface. I mean, I think the first issue is the day the Eiffel Tower went berserk, which
Hmm.
is already a very superhero-y, like on the surface, like, okay, that's like a classic Superman story. I'm sure that's
Oh
a
yeah.
thing. But at the end of every issue, he finishes with a small piece of world building that is almost non sequitur. My favorite being the end of issue 1. This is the end of the first part of Umbrella
Oh, I
Academy
love this part.
Adventure
Yeah.
Apocalypse Suite. There are 5 more chapters to the series, with 22 pages per chapter, totaling 132 pages. There are 7 members of the Umbrella Academy, and there are 72 names on the Eiffel Tower. There is no connection between these numbers. And it's just I was reading it, I was so engrossed, and then just that idea that there is no connection between these numbers. It's just the book is a series of things that may or may not be related. The children may not be related. There's no connection between these numbers, these
Right.
children, even if you want to read that radically into the text.
Hmm.
But there's one where a couple issues prior, you learn the world is about to end, and you see a newspaper that says it's a perfect day, nothing to report, and then a couple issues just before you get to the climax, he ends with the daily weather report where it's like the atmosphere pressure is great, the weather is sunny, it's a nice
Right.
day. And so he very smartly uses these little blocks of text at the end of every issue to hook you into coming back and
Hmm.
to just again continue to reinforce the idea that he's so sure of the world he's created. And I
Right.
think that Umbrella Academy stands the test of time. Uh, and I would highly recommend anyone to go check out Volume 1 Apocalypse Suite. I believe it's available on Comixology.
It is. Yes.
Your local comic store is bound to have a copy, especially with the advent of the Netflix series. If it's a Netflix series, your store is likely to have at least the first volume because they like to keep those around. I picked up Stumptown Volume 1 because that's now an ABC series. So
Right.
if it inspired a television show, your store is probably going to have it, but it's also available on Comixology and
Hmm.
Comixology Unlimited currently.
Right. And yeah, I mean, and in like wrapping that up, I mean, even if you just read like the first trade of Umbrella Academy, it's ultimately a story about a family, about people, and functioning in that family, and it doesn't always pan out. Which,
Nice,
thank
nice.
you. I built that whole thing up. There's tons of people out there rolling their eyes. Pan is our secret word for the day. That's PAN, that's capitalized. Go ahead and keep that word, write it down somewhere, because later on Madison is going to drop the link, so everyone out there can have a chance to win the Guillermo del Toro by Sjogren. Also an unruly collaboration piece there. It's fantastic. It's a beautiful piece. We will drop the Gleam link again later on. Secret word is Pan. That's PAN. All
like
right.
like the bread that they have at the Eiffel Tower. Except I think
Yes.
that's spelled like pain. So don't spell it like pain. It's PAN.
No.
Well,
Right.
speaking of food now that I'm hungry,
Yes. Boy,
let's
we're chock
transition.
full of transitions,
I
aren't we?
know, we're
Good for
killing it
us.
here.
Yeah, sometimes it just works.
Another weird comic book that should not work. We asked you in the Facebook group, instead of doing a poll this week related to a specific character or question, we asked you guys which of these Image kind of must reads should we check out. We offered you guys East of West, God Country, Descender, and Chew.
Yes.
And you guys ultimately picked Chew, so we checked that out. Chew from Image Comics is by John Layman and Rob Guillory. And now I recognize Rob Guillory from a couple of things. He did a guest spot in a Thor annual where he did a very laugh out loud, gross kind of story of Thor having a drinking contest with a giant.
Right.
But he's also currently working on Farmhand, which is yet another grotesque story of food and produce.
Right.
Um, but
Loves the food angle there.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and Rob Guillory's art style is bizarre.
Right.
It's not something that I would call objectively beautiful. His characters are funky, distorted. He is king of facial expressions.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
oh my goodness. But Chew is a book that on its surface uh shouldn't work as well. It is very strange. The first 5 issues are called Taster's Choice. You can read the first issue for free on imagecomics.com. You can
Right.
actually go to the Sideshow blog, check out our Comics Hall Digital Resources blog, and we've listed the place that you can
Yes.
get free Image Comics online.
And
A lot of their series is to tempt you into reading more. They've presented the first issue, and so Chew was among all the ones that we listed on our poll this week were available free on the Image Comics website, so you can check that out now. Now, before we launch into explaining why this comic shouldn't work but absolutely does, I owe one of my comic book store coworkers from 5 years ago an apology, because one time he tried to recommend me this book, and granted he took a long time to explain it, but he told me, so there's this guy and he works for the FDA, but they're like the police, and he can eat things and know where they're from. And so he eats people. He's like Dexter and Hannibal Lecter, and he eats them and he knows where they're from and he can help. And then I was thinking I thought it was like iZombie. Um, but and he's like, and then there's like a kung fu chicken, and it's so good, Amy, you should read it. And I was like, I don't understand a single word he just said. And I read this issue and I said, oh my God, everything he said was true. There is a man, Tony Chu, who is sebopathic. In the first issue, they introduce you. There's a brief prologue of a chef practicing bad kitchen safety, cuts himself,
right.
but continues to cook his food while bleeding. Then they immediately introduce you to Tony Chu, who is sebopathic, which is actually a term I've never heard before. So I don't know if they created it for this book or not. But he has the uncanny ability to eat a piece of, let's say, fruit, and he can tell where it was grown, when it was harvested, what pesticides they used. And then, of course, if he eats meat, the story
Yes.
is a little bit more different because he can tell where it was slaughtered and how it died and all that lovely stuff. They find out, though, that the only food that he can't really telepathically commune with is beets. So he eats beets.
Tony eats a lot of beets.
A lot of beets. Reminds me of the Portlandia sketch that I love so much. Um, but
Yeah.
that's what the book throws you into immediately.
Yeah, and there's a lot of what's great is you're immediately thrown into this inner monologue almost, right after the introduction there, which also does play in. So when you're reading, it does play in later in the issue. So when you are reading the pretext there, and it's kind of, going over and it's showing that chef practicing very, very bad, uh, very bad cooking habits, like as Amy said. You're immediately thrown into like an inner monologue, and what's kind of great about this is there when you take a step back, there's a huge world that's happening within just this first issue. And Layman does an amazing job of kind of unraveling these things, these plot points to you that aren't just plot points for this first issue. This is like, this is an appetizer. of a book, and the full course meal is coming later on. I've luckily I own the first trade of Chew. So I've been fortunate enough to at least read through and see that it does pay off in it, and there is so much more to it. But the first issue itself is in itself, it's so fantastic in that like it does offer so much up to you that is like you've got to come back.
Yes, were this done any differently, I would be extremely put off if the inner monologue was like, "The year is 2030 and chicken has been outlawed," and God, what I wouldn't do for, like, a drumstick, like, that would I'd be like, "Eh," but the you see Tony, who is currently kind of working as a police officer, and,
Right.
you see his partner, who's this big ol', like, devil may care, I break the law kind of dude, and he's like, "Oh, we play perfectly off each other." They go on a stakeout,
Hmm.
um, or more
Haha. Another food joke.
should I say a poultry out. So they're using, like, X-ray, goggles, and they're watching people come out of an abandoned storefront, and they're like, "Oh, no, like, that guy's got something on him, but he's probably just trying to feed his family, it's all good." And they see another gentleman leave the establishment, and they're like, "That guy's packing. What's he got in there?" And you find out it's chicken. He's got
Yes.
he's got chicken breasts and different cuts of meat. And that immediately you go, "Oh, why are they so alarmed about that?" And it's because in a set of circumstances, this is a world where the bird flu caused the eradication of poultry farming.
Yes.
And so chicken has been outlawed. Literally chicken has been outlawed. Um, and so it is a fascinating concept. And so it is this it now is a luxury item, and it
Right.
has become like the thing. Um, and it kind of lays low on the Tony can understand where things came from when he eats them for the middle of the book, but then it jacks it up again towards the end,
Oh yeah.
because they meet Agent Savoy of the FDA, which is now kind of like this shield-like operation of clandestine agents, um, kind of uh, keeping the law of the food landscape, which
Right.
it's it's such a bizarre concept, but I was so intrigued.
I mean, it's absolutely fascinating, and what I was mentioning earlier, and what Amy was also mentioning, in that like the world building is fantastic. Like it doesn't just like say, okay, this is what you need to know. Now let's get on with the story. Like it's laid out so uh, almost eloquently, if I can use that to describe this super crazy weird book. But what I love is that in what Amy was mentioning, that there's someone who's like, "Oh, he's packing." Again, this is a full spoiler episode because I think it's important to.
And the book is also rated 18 up, just so you know.
Yes. Oh, yeah. This is a very. This is a. Yeah, a mature book.
The Image
Um,
Comics website warns you before you click through.
it sure does. But you find out that the person that is packing during the poultry prohibition, as they also call it, which I loved, is Tony Chu's brother, who ended up he was a world-renowned chef, think like a Food Network chef, and he actually goes on this rant, and then they kind of immediately cut to that about, like, the government doesn't want you to eat chicken, they're saving it for themselves or they're hoarding it. And that to me was brilliant. And then that's where you get all of the context for like this world, in that
Mhm.
there are people that are just doing their job, Tony Chu, who is reluctantly doing his job. It's almost like he's unfazed by this crazy poultry prohibition. And then you have people that are just trying to live. Like the guy saying he probably blew his whole paycheck on those two pieces of chicken. And then you have people that are, who are doing anything they can to have chicken. There's even, as we're introduced later, a chicken speakeasy. Uh,
That was my favorite concept, like, they get the
a beak
password.
easy, if I can.
Very nice. Someone
Thank
call
you.
Rob Guillory and John Layman and tell them to change that for future publications of the trade. Um,
I take cash, Venmo, however,
but
just
they
comics.
meet FDA agent Savoy, who's very interested in what they have to offer, and he says, "Why don't you two gentlemen treat yourself to a nice meal?" Password is Wishbone, because they discover, like, they discover a chicken kingpin, basically,
Yes.
who's running things out of this neighborhood. And yeah, so I like the world building. I think is smart in the way that it first it introduces you to the concept of a SIBO path, which is like, okay, wrap your brain around that for a hot second. but it uses everything you know to
Right.
then unravel everything else. Like, you know what a police stakeout looks like, and when they catch their guy and the people are leaving the clandestine operation, like, you know what that looks like. But then it's like, oh, but they're smuggling chicken. And then you see the kind of the gangster lord who kind of like he's like, I run this part of town and
Right.
this is my chicken joint. Like you don't. And then it's like, oh, okay. So then that becomes the currency. And you know celebrities having a meltdown over something and politicizing issues. And then but he's freaking out about chicken again. And so
Right.
you get these concepts of what you already know rewritten in a new way. Now, the big climax of the moment comes when they do go to the chicken speakeasy and they order their dinner. And Tony orders a soup. He asks, I love that he asks, "What's the soup?" And the waiter's like, "It's chicken soup."
Chicken, dude.
But he describes the dish with the onion and suddenly
Oh,
your mind is
yes. There
called
we go.
back to the preparation of the chef in the first scene, the faceless chef
Right.
who's like, "Oh, I'm doing onions and carrots and chicken shredded stew." Yeah, first of all, get a look at that panel. It is actually a full two-page spread of those
It's
orange clusters
fantastic.
behind him, each of which contains a small, grotesque detail of a murder, of a body being dismembered. Some of them are just plain blood splots.
Right.
But Rob Guillory is the master of the facial expression. This is a man with a mouthful of food that is telling him way more than he wanted to know, because this is the soup that the chef got his blood in.
Right.
From the blood, he can learn from the chef that this man is a repeated serial killer.
Yes.
So he tells his coworker, and they
Boom.
bust into the kitchens, and from there, uh, a short police chase ends, but it ends with the serial killer killing himself so
Right.
that Tony can't get any more information from him.
And I love that
Or
he
can
says
he?
right, and I was gonna say, and I love that he says, "Oh, I'll get it one way." He's like, "I'll get my answers one way or another." And then I think we cut to a scene. It's a panel right before the next page or swipe, where however you're reading it. Um, and you can it's kind of seeing Tony Chu from afar,
Mhm.
which I guess in and of I guess that's a you can see Tony Chu from afar.
Yeah, so and to recount, the serial killer was accused of killing 11 different women, chopping them up, disposing of their bodies, and so this is like a heinous thing. And he even gets the names of some of the girls just by tasting the blood in the soup, which is that's where your brain has to start like zooming out macro, like galaxy brain style. Um, but yeah, so when the serial killer kills himself and Tony says he'll get his answers, Paul, do you want to explain how he gets his answers?
Well, he
Full
eats
spoilers for the end of the first issue. Sorry,
he
guys.
he eats the serial killer. He's basically I don't do we get a I kind of read it a little later in the night, so my brain may be a little foggy. But did he eat a specific part? Like he was just biting it like his throat, it looked
He
like.
started to bite his throat and his face, kind of.
Right. And so you kind of it's interesting. You see him hunched over, and that's the panel you get. And then it cuts to Tony Chu sitting in a in his boss's office. He's the commish maybe or whoever it is, and he's basically telling him, "You do good work, even though we have no idea how the hell you get things done. Like we don't understand it." I think he said there were 13 victims. We got the names and everything for all 13 victims that this serial killer, the chef that we've been mentioning, had unfortunately murdered. And I do love that. If I can kind of backtrack a tiny bit, the little monologue that Tony has with the serial killer and saying that I'm doing this, because I like the victims and the 13 people that were abducted and killed. Their families deserve that closure, because that kind of allows you to dig sort of into the character of Tony Chu, and that like it's unfortunate like that uh what his and not unfortunate what his power is, but it definitely is heavy as the head that eats the crown, so he as he's doing that, it kind of allows you to see like completely has this power, and he sometimes reluctantly uses it because I'm sure, from what we know and from the first trade that I've read, he doesn't, like, not taste it doesn't not taste weird to him, but he has to do it.
Mhm.
And that's a
To get the information.
right, and that's a great introduction to who Tony Chu is as a character, that he will at times, most times, reluctantly use this power.
Yes, and the issue ends with Agent Savoy of the FDA coming back and welcoming Tony Chu onto their squad because they can really use a guy whose power is basically like you get a free tattletale, but he has to make a terrible personal sacrifice to do it. And now
Right.
if I could trouble us to pull up the cover again, I want to take a look at the cover because I love, after you've read the issue, seeing the the kind of, there's like a chicken carcass on the table. Um and the dead bodies, of course. You're like, okay, this is going to be a crime procedural.
Right.
Um Right now we do have we do have the
Yeah,
picture of the soup again, which when
is
you can see the 2 full pages of that, that's a lot to look
now,
at.
Amy, did you find yourself, like, I was reading it, I reread it digitally, I was zooming into, like, the little green squares,
I
like,
couldn't
just to
do it.
see.
No, I couldn't do it. There we go. Yeah, see,
Oh,
you can
there's the
even
cover,
see
yeah.
that the chicken on the table is not, uh it's not appetizing,
No.
and it's kind of indicative of the state of the world there, but
And also what food looks like to him, because he
mhm.
no longer looks at steak and thinks like, "Oh, man, that's gonna be delicious." Like, I think he looks at steak and he has that burden of thinking, "Oh god, okay, if I bite this, I'm gonna see all of the terrible things that it took to get it to my plate," or, terrible or not, he's just gonna see everything that happened, and, he just wants to eat and enjoy, and do Tony Chu things, whatever Tony Chu likes to do in his spare time, but,
Mhm.
if it's not beets, then don't bother, right?
Yeah, and so this is one of those groundbreaking Image Comics series. It is, I'd say it's second string when people are like, "Oh, you've got to do Saga or Invincibles." Chew is always one of those ones that comes up close behind, where it's like, okay, if you like Saga and you like that kind of indie comic scene, once you've accepted the weird
Right,
stuff, like, go for Chew. I believe Chew is completely finished as a series, but there are spin-offs coming. I know that there is a chicken character named Pollo at some point. I've seen him on the cover of things, but there is a Chew spin-off series coming up soon, and I believe there was
yeah,
also a crossover with Outer Darkness coming soon, a 3-issue crossover of Chew and another book. So it's still
right,
got legs, but the main series is completely finished. If you are curious about any of this yourself, first of all, we do recommend, even though we kind of did walk you through the whole issue, we do recommend you check out the first issue on imagecomics.com. If you go to the actual store page for Chew, there is a blue line underneath the book's title that says read the first issue now.
yeah,
That is a wonderful, wonderful resource that Image Comics provides on their website. And I think they've added some more titles recently. So you could spend several days indulging in over 130 free first issues on Image Comics uh, on their website. And I really do like this format where you guys, because a lot of people, I mean, obviously the people that voted for this book in our Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group are fans themselves.
mhm,
It's not something that I ever read. It's something that I had passed off based on the strange but accurate explanation that my coworker gave me many years ago, and I feel like I do owe him an apology. It was a fascinating book, and when you finish it, you go, okay, well, now what? Like,
yeah,
I have to know what the hell comes next. Because if you think that eating someone's face and tasting someone's blood in a soup is the height of the depravity you might experience in this book,
nope,
I am sure, having never exposed myself to any of the story, I am sure that it gets 1,000 times weirder. Like,
yes.
there's a cover I remember distinctly, and we didn't pull it for this, but he's got a meat grinder, and there's a poster behind him of a man, and all the parts of the man are labeled out, and I'm like, oh no, like he has to eat corpses.
Or there's the
Ah!
of him putting the brain in the meat grinder, and he's just like reluctantly doing it.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
just, classic image stuff.
So it's a little iZombie and a little bit Law and Order and a little bit I'm never gonna eat soup again.
iZombie and Law and Order. Perfect.
It's
What a
yes.
what a pitch.
But yeah, for someone who was absolutely skeptical and had no clue, this was a fascinating read. Kind of, I think these two books, for how vastly different they are, The Umbrella Academy and Chew, they represent the height of what comics can be
Hmm.
when someone knows the world that they're creating, when they
Yes.
just go for it, and when you make the choice as the reader to say, I am here for it, I accept whatever they're about to tell me, and I will live in that world based on those parameters that they have set. Because
Hmm.
by no means are either of these a conventional story, even though they seem to look like mystery comics are a thing. I mean, Stumptown, Alias, um, Fatale, The Fade Out, all those like kind of mystery style comics. That's a staple of
Right.
the industry. And superhero comics are the bread and butter of comics right
Hmm.
now. But both of these go. You think you know what those are, but you're absolutely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, Tony Chu is a superhero, and
Oh,
with a terrible, terrible burden that he has to carry. But yeah, but
he should team up with Matter Eater, lad. The
boom,
things that they could do.
we just pitched another book. Look at
Bam,
us.
amalgam right there.
Say what you want, but we get work. But all right, everyone, thank you guys all so much. Madison over in the she's been in all of our channels, whether you're watching on Periscope or on Twitch, multiple channels on Facebook, YouTube. We're also on Instagram Live. I can see everyone. Hi, everyone on Instagram. We were recommended Farmhand on Instagram, Amy, so we better get
Oh,
to
excellent.
that.
I
If you
think
guys
that
have
one's also a free first issue, so we might check
it
that one
sure
out
is. Yeah,
next.
we put that up every week. Usually Friday nights. Myself or Amy will put up a poll and say, "Hey, this is 4 issues of something free that is accessible to everyone as long as you have the internet. We want to make sure that you can participate and read in the Comics Hall Book Club, as only I call it, I think, because it's kind of a dorky name. But we also put up questions that we like to discuss. We talked about, a while ago, is Black Widow better with the Avengers? Is she better by herself? So we ask all sorts of things like that in the Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group, which is the official Facebook group of Sideshow. But Madison has dropped the link for everyone again for so everyone can have a chance to win the Sjogren Guillermo del Toro over there, and it's fantastic. So thank you, Madison, for doing that, and thank you all for watching. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I know these were some strange books. We hope that either you read along with us or you check them out. You feel inspired after listening to our ranting reviews and praise of these very unconventional books. Look forward to more comic book news next, suggestions and questions for what we should read next. If you have any ideas, feel free to holler at us on our social channels. We are on
Yep.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff.
Anywhere.
So once again, on a Wednesday, I'm Amy,
I'm Paul.
and this has been the Comics Hall. Thank you guys so much.
What if it worked for coffee? And every time I drank coffee, you could just see, like, it would be a good way to go on vacation.
Would it?
Like,
Would it
eat a pineapple, and you're like, I'm in Hawaii, assuming that's where my
Oh.
pineapple came from.